O'clock on a Wednesday morning. How do you make friends as an adult? In school, it's relatively easy, isn't it? Because you're surrounded by people with the same experience 8 hours a day. But as you get older, that social interaction can be harder and harder to find, that common ground, especially, apparently, for men. The latest YouGov survey on this found 1 in 5 men have no close friends, twice the proportion of women. When the Movember Foundation asked men who they could talk to about big serious things, health, money worries, half of those surveyed said they had no one. So with so many men feeling isolated, what can we all do to change that? Here to talk about it first is Max Dickins, who's authored the new book, Billy No Mates, How I Realised Men Have a Friendship Problem. Max, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for having me.
How did this book come about, Max?
Well, it came about from personal necessity. I was thinking of getting engaged. I was literally in the shop buying the ring to propose to my girlfriend. And then I went and had a drink straight after that. And the person I was shopping with said, who's your best man going to be? And I went, ooh. I went home, made a list, and I looked at the list and I thought, gosh, I work with most of these people. The other lot on the list I haven't seen for years. And I suddenly realised my friends have disappeared. What's happened? And I just tried to solve the problem.
What has changed with male friendships, do you think? And what have you found in the book?
Well, there's kind of two theories about why men struggle with friendship. The first one is that we bring all sorts of slightly weird rules to our friendship. So, like, there's an unspoken rule that when you're with male friends, it's meant to be all about the banter, right? And that's great fun, but does that get in the way of the more meaningful talk? We're also not meant to be needy and be the one chasing and organising, so maybe we both look at each other and don't really do anything about it and everything drifts, and we don't tell our friends we like each other. So this kind of set of rules we bring, right, maybe gets in the way of having proper friends versus having more casual mates. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but you do need some friends too. And the second thing I discovered is that there are fundamentally quite big differences between male and female friendships. And if you understand that, you kind of know what you need to do. So to kind of sum it up really quickly for you, Stephen, female friendships tend to be face-to-face, based around talk and emotional
empathy. There's lots of empathy, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, tons, yeah, which is why men often go to women to talk about the big stuff, right? And then on the flip side of that, male friendships tend to be side by side, shoulder to shoulder, based around sharing activities. And this, as you said in your great intro there, is why things often go wrong. We get a bit older. Those activities, those spaces we used to have when we were younger, disappear.
Yeah, I saw a stand-up comic recently who was talking about this, and he was saying, you know, if he gets a hen night in, and he picks on one of the women in the hen night, all the other women will then turn on him and protect each other, whereas all the men will kind of feed him lines about... They'll be quite happy to see their friend being ripped apart in front of that. It's a very different thing about friendship. And it also changes, Max, doesn't it, when you go into a relationship. And friendships are often based much more around the female partner in the relationship and what they bring to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I found this personally. I realised that the people I was hanging out with most were all my girlfriend's mates. And it's because us guys tend to kind of outsource the social work to our female partners. If we were honest, we introduced them at weddings as, hello, this is my wife and the director of people operations at Jeff Limited. That's what we should be saying, right? And the problem with that is that when push comes to shove and we need our friends, we go, oh, they're not really around anymore because we've kind of given that job to somebody else.
And the pandemic has made this so much worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I was saying a moment ago, if male friendships are much more about doing stuff, and we were locked away in the pandemic, so I've spoken to tons of men, and there's research on this as well, that male friendships suffered a lot more than female friendships. And then you get out of the pattern, right? You know, friendship has a rhythm, and I think we've lost it through the COVID catastrophe, and we need to kind of rediscover that.
Do you get the sense as well that, you know, women were very open about this during the pandemic, you know, how it pained them not to have that close contact with their female friends. Men were much more reluctant to say that, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, men don't talk about friendships. They don't really think about them. And I think there are some kind of taboos about saying that you feel lonely or that saying that maybe your friendships aren't quite right. I certainly felt that. Like you admit maybe you miss your friends or you don't have many, and you're suddenly that guy in the school lunch hall, you know, who's sat there eating his school dinner by himself. No one wants to be that guy. so we don't talk about it. But you're right, women are much more willing to say, do you know what, I need my friends, I want to do something about it. And therefore, that's one reason why they do tend to have better social lives.
Well, why are friends important for men? If friendships are suffering, what else goes in terms of the men's psychology?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of links between friendlessness, loneliness, and poor mental health and poor physical health as well. I've read this incredible stat that having no friends is worse for you than smoking 15 cigarettes a day, drinking lots, and being obese. So get some friends, and you can really get stuck in to do the other fun stuff. So, there is an upside, guys. This is what I'm saying. But but also, I mean, without kind of getting too grim about it. And one of the things that makes life meaningful is is having friends. And so it's such a shame that men versus women have less, and less friends especially. I think this is important to talk about when the stuff, when push comes to shove, the pinch points in life, when maybe you get divorced, or you get bereaved, or you lose your job, whatever it is, do you have someone to go to and invest in, or can you not have those conversations with your mates?
And we all know about the awful male suicide rates in this country, especially amongst younger men. How do we rebuild friendship networks for men post-pandemic, Max? Big question.
It's a really great question. The first thing is, I have this phrase that somebody said to me when I was researching, which he said, my mates call me the Sherpa, because I do all the work. But if I wasn't the Sherpa, I'd never see my friends. So I've tried to take that on. So my advice would be, you've got to do something about it. Be the Sherpa. Be the one that goes first, does the organising. The other thing you need to do is, as you get older, get into middle age, routine, ritual, structure is really important to friendship. Don't leave it to spontaneity. Can you build something which is a bit like the school network you said earlier? Maybe it's your five-a-side football every fortnight. Maybe it's a poker school, or whatever your thing is with your friends, something that is regular, something that's in the diary. And then the third thing I'd say is, can you expand your toolbox a little bit? Can you not just go into third gear with your conversation, so all the banter stuff? Can you go into fourth and fifth and have sometimes some of those bigger conversations? And to do that, try going first. Try being the one who maybe talks about the bigger stuff, so your friends can reciprocate and feel they've got permission.
Max, stay with me. One of the challenges around this is, as you say in the book, is making new friends later in life. The Men's Shed Association is a good place to do that. David Gardner is their chairman in Scotland, also on the board of his local shed as well at Garnock Valley. David, morning. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Why are male friendships so important in your view?
Well, a lot of what Max has said we can touch upon. Guys find themselves in an environment through various things like retirement, loss of job redundancy. One of the classic ones, leaving the armed forces, where you would camaraderie, people around you all the time, and all of a sudden you wake up one morning, you're no longer working, you're no longer in the forces, you're on your own. And it's important from a male point of view that we have this interaction, because otherwise you become if I retired, I realise there's more to life than homes under the hammer and bargain hunting such like. So I think it's important, and this is where men's sheds come into. We make no apology for being interested in men's health and well-being. That's our whole ethos. To try and get guys mixing with guys again, understanding. Max has touched upon a lot of great points there. I mean, he talks about reluctance. Men have a reluctance to speak to one another. And shoulder to shoulder is a phrase we use continuously. We've got to get guys back into an environment where they feel comfortable and, more importantly, can discuss these important issues that Max already touched upon.
There's something about the environment, isn't there, David? Because, especially maybe later in life, men may find it difficult to try and find that space to have a friendship with another man. And what you do is you make that space.
Yeah, but you've got to remember, you're talking about later in life. We encourage any man from the 18 years and upwards, because if you look at the male suicide rate, the bulk of it tends to happen in the 20s. So it's not an old man problem. This is a male problem. We've got to get guys, as I said before, into an environment where they feel comfortable enough to be able to open up. Now, I could spend the next hour giving you examples, which you would like to know I'm not going to do. But seriously, we can cite so many examples of men who have been at the stage of suicide, who have come round due to the peers being able to bring them through that and bring them back into life, so to speak.
But the hardest thing is walking through that door, David, isn't it? You know that because you did it yourself. How do you encourage people to do it?
Well, what we do is we always say to people, we have sheds throughout the whole 32 local authorities of Scotland. We've got over 129 sheds open now. And what we say to them, go along. You'll be under no pressure whatsoever. And always bear in mind that the person you're speaking to has made the very journey that you're making today. Go in, and if you don't like it, fine. But nobody's going to criticise you. Nobody's going to force you into doing anything. We tend to be associated with workshops and productions. We're far, far more than that. We are a unit which offers this word again, I'm going to use camaraderie. Come in, be a mate, meet mates, understand people, and understand people who are in the same environment you're in. Whether you're 18 or whether you're 89, it doesn't matter.
David, stay with me. I'm going to bring in Ian Dick to our conversation. Ian's a blogger, coordinator of the Dadsnet group in Glasgow. Ian, just that conversation we're having with David there about younger men as well, and about how friendship groups there can be fractured, maybe especially when parenthood comes along and there are so many other kind of distractions on the time. You can relate to that, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I think when you become a dad, well, when you become a parent for the first time, things tend to just go up in the air regardless. Every aspect of social life and everything else can go up in the air. So I think it's quite fair to say that when it comes to male friendships, it gets completely deprioritised to the point of you can maybe wait a couple of years after having your first child and then you realise, wait a minute, where have all my friends gone? And sometimes we realise it before that. Other times it can take a bit longer to realise it. But absolutely, the friends group can be completely shattered when you become a parent, especially if you don't have other parent friends.
Yeah, because you've got being a parent, you've got being a partner, you've got work as well. So the priority of friends from that top of the pile, almost maybe when you're a teenager. All of a sudden, it's the thing that has really gone from your life. Now, the Dadsnet group kind of addresses that, doesn't it? Tell me what you do.
So less so much recently. I think the pandemic really sort of sorted us out with that one. But pre-pandemic, we were a bit more proactive in our Glasgow local community where we would meet, or at least we would have that place that would be mostly on Facebook, for example, where we'd have the online connection where people could talk to each other. They could reach out and say, look, I'm struggling, or look, I need some help with something. Or I'm going to go out and I'm going to go do this thing. Does anyone want to join me? And that was the main thing. The main reason was, how do we actually make new connections? And I think our height of our popularity is probably 2017, where we actually met once a month. And that took some being proactive. I was the sharper in that situation. So being the admin guy, so I had to arrange for an event or something for dads to turn up to once a month, either with the kids or without the kids. But ultimately it involved going and doing a thing, whatever it might have been, but being there so that we could start to try and grow some relationships. And even since then, I've kept a number of those Facebook friends because that's the only way that I know them. And the only thing we have in common is the fact that we're all dads and we all live in the vague kind of Glasgow area. And it's been valuable for a lot of them.
But you would echo what Max said about the pandemic having a big impact on this, if you've not been doing as much of that as you had been before.
I would say that's definitely made a huge, huge impact. I think it's probably been the thing where everything has gone online, so then a lot of our communities and forums and stuff happen online, which is probably similar to the idea of there being mates and how they're maybe just in first gear, but taking it up a notch and actually saying, I'm really struggling. And especially that thing of actually being able to say to your friends, look, I miss you, or I miss being around you, I miss hanging out, or I miss doing whatever our activity is. That sort of thing is not normally in our vocabulary. So when we're having to deal with family life and deal with a pandemic as well, it makes it almost impossible to try and verbalise that on top of it. So it was a huge struggle, but I think we're definitely rebuilding from that from now.
How important are your friendships to you, Ian? What do you get out of them?
I think it's probably that thing of targeting loneliness. It's the thing that we don't really want to admit, that we are lonely or that we need help with our responsibilities, or even the fact that we the fact that we are trying to be a dad, trying to be a partner, and trying to do so much, that actually we struggle with not knowing how to verbalise that to other people. And I think having people that you can meet face to face potentially, like what Max said about side by side, we're great at that. That's our default. But to find at least one or two connections where we can be face to face with them, and we can say, look, I'm going through something that I don't know how to manage. Can you just be here with me? That takes guts, and that takes a big thing. So for us to try to encourage that kind of culture is incredible.
Ian, thanks so much for your time this morning. Let's go back to Max, who started this whole absolutely fascinating conversation for us this morning. Max, who ended up being your best man?
Well, there's a twist in the tale, because I, having got in touch with all my old mates and really rebuilt loads of relationships and had an amazing choice, in the end, I had two best women. So now that sounds like a resignation. It sounds like a failure, but I had some amazing groomsmen, and in the end, I had best women because they were such great fun. But my male friendships are way better, and I've been so inspired by this conversation today. There's so much we can do, and it's great people like David and Ian are doing so much for it.
Max, pleasure to speak to you this morning. Max's book is called Billy No Mates, How I Realised Men Have a Friendship Problem. Thanks also to David Gardner from the Men's Shed Association and Ian Dick from the Dad's Net Group in Glasgow as well. Your thoughts on that? 80295 to get in touch with us this morning, 10:27 on a Wednesday. It's BBC Radio.